As promised, Chris Stenton, Development Director from Foundation of Community Dance, is going to talk a bit about the background to DTAP, where it's come from, and what it's done to date. Chris.
Thank you. Microphone, PowerPoint notes and speaking might be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll see how we get on. I'm just going to speak really briefly, just for 7 or 8 minutes, just to tell you a little bit about the history of DTAP, where we came from, kind of what we're working on at the moment, and kind of where we plan to go to in the future. Some of you may know this information already, but some of you may not, and we just kind of felt that it would be really good if we all were at the same starting point for the discussions for the rest of the day. So, and then it means we're kind of okay when we get to the interesting stuff in the discussions. So just a little bit about the history. DTAP was actually formed in 2006. It was brought together by Laban, who kind of formed a small group of organisations who are primarily concerned with the quality of dance artists and dance teachers working with children and young people at that particular point in time. Veronica Jobbins secured some funding from Nike, Youth Dance England and Arts and Business, and the group commissioned Suzanne Burns to carry out some research for us. This research was published in 2008 and is available to download from the DTAP website. The research contains some key recommendations about how we might move forward in the future, and this really formed the basis of the further discussions between the DTAP partners. I think it's important to note that the DTAP research took place at the same time as a number of other quite important workforce development initiatives. Things like Next Steps, Youth Dance England, making a move from the Foundation for Community Dance. We identified that there were lots of similarities between many of the things that we were all trying to achieve. And it just kind of felt that it was much more sensible to align those and move forward together. It was much more effective and was potentially the basis of a much more interesting partnership. And in many respects, so the current phase of DTAP came into being. The partnership in its brief were expanded to look beyond children and young people. So we decided to take a focus on community and participatory dance more generally. We developed a new programme, which I'll talk more about in a moment, and we secured £200,000 worth of funding from Arts Council England to move that work forward. That money was awarded to us in April 2009. So moving on to what we're doing at the moment, the 3 work strands listed up there are really the focus of the discussions for the rest of the day. I won't want to go into a huge amount of detail about those because other people will be doing that shortly. Each of the work strands kind of stands on its own, but actually I believe as the day and the discussions develop, you'll see how we think that they're really closely interrelated and one informs the other. So whilst they can be seen on their own and actually different bits are being led by different partners in DTAP, actually we all talk together and they all interrelate and kind of form a more cohesive whole. I suppose the big thing for us in DTAP is that it represents kind of coordinated leadership from within the dance sector around a number of key strategic themes that the group had identified, which are represented by the work strands. We think it's a really interesting model of working and potentially offers quite a lot for us and maybe for other people in the future. Jumping forward a little bit, when we kind of put our plans together, we kind of had the idea of legacy in mind. So we could do all of this work, but actually what would it mean? And we think it means these things. It might mean some different things, it might mean some other things. But I guess ultimately, there were 3 kind of parts to a triangle that we were trying to look at here. So as artists, employers and participants. And really our focus is around quality control, quality assurance, supporting best practice. And that's really why we're here today. I should let you know that DTAP is a kind of a time-limited partnership. So the work that we currently have planned is likely to be complete by March 2011. Not sure what might happen in the future, but certainly that's as far as we're planning. And I guess the discussions this afternoon around the development of a regulatory, more cohesive structure for the future will tie into that timescale in some way. Finally, I just kind of want to leave us with some thoughts around some challenges, around things that as partners have been revealed to us as we've been working through the process. The first is really around language, and we've discovered that it's incredibly slippery when we're talking about continuing professional development. And actually, very often, we'll say the same word, but we all mean different things. And that's led to some quite interesting and occasionally heated discussions, but actually in a really positive way at the end of the day, because I think what's been happening is we've been refining our language and our meaning and developing a greater shared meaning as we've been moving on. And I guess for us, today is about you helping us to kind of clarify that language and hopefully simplify that language so it's clearer for everybody in the future. I guess the second point is kind of changes in the political and economic landscape. I'm quite surprised about how quickly things are changing. It feels like we're all of a sudden living in a relatively different world. What might that mean for DTAP? What might that mean for the industry? Are there opportunities? Are there threats? I'm not actually sure of what the answers are at the moment, but I'm absolutely sure that we do need to bear that context in mind when thinking about how we move forward in the future. So I kind of leave you with that one. And then finally, it's always good to end with a presidential quote. My colleagues Graham and Ken are very good at doing that, and here is one which has been quoted by numerous American presidents, but I think most famously by Truman. And for us, I guess that's kind of the point of DTAP. This is really why we've come together. And having this conference, engaging with you in this way, is just an indication of how we'd like to continue in that very kind of open, collaborative and inclusive way. In a way, we don't mind who does it. We just think it has to get done. We see ourselves as facilitators and enablers, and we can't do that without you.